for breakfast, lunch, and dinner. They offer traditional Cuban recipes in a relaxed, casual, and festive Cuban environment. They're at 3756 Grand Avenue in South Minneapolis. For more details, go to eatlocalminnesota.com.
Wake up, it's a great big beautiful day. Wake up, wake up.
Good morning and welcome to Wake Up Call, where you'll find the education, encouragement, and inspiration you need to change your mind and change your health. The Wake Up Call is an outreach of the Bhakti Wellness Center. Today's program is brought to you by the Integrative Team for children with challenges. And that's a program with Dr. Andrew Litchy, who is also of the Bhakti Wellness Center. Good morning, everybody. And actually, speaking of Dr. Litchy, good morning.
Oh, good morning.
And what are we going to be talking about today?
Well, this morning we're going to be talking about classical homeopathy. So homeopathy is a system of medicine developed in the late 18th century, around 1796 or so, by a physician, Samuel Hahnemann. This system is interesting because it developed directly from clinical practice, and it offers a rather unique view and approach to the application of medicine and medical substances. So the theory of the system is really quite different than mainstream application of medicines, and so we're going to go into this further. In many ways, modern reductionist science can't explain how homeopathic medicines actually work, and yet it is a clinical science that works very well for people. So today we're going to be discussing classical homeopathy with our guest, Dr. Jacob Mirman. Dr. Mirman's a medical doctor with an integrative practice in St. Louis Park. So in addition to practicing conventional and integrative medicine, Dr. Mirman is a classical homeopath with over 20 years of experience. So welcome.
Thank you.
Good morning. All right, and Guy's going to be hanging out over on Facebook for us today, chatting with folks over there. Do you have a question for folks to kind of check in with us out there, or we just kind of ask them what they're – basically we want to find out if they have any experience with homeopathy and maybe what what that experience was? Sounds good?
That sounds great.
All right. And then if you want to call in and let us know too, or if you have any questions as we get into our discussion today, give us a call here in the studio at 952-946-6205. Again, that's 952-946-6205. And, of course, you can find us on Facebook through our website at thewakeupcallradioshow.com. And we do actually have a deal of the week for folks today, right, Drew?
Oh, we do have a deal of the week. The deal of the week is a complimentary consult with the Integrative Team for Children with Challenges. So this team is a group of 3 practitioners, myself, Dr. Mirman, and a neurodevelopmental reflexologist. And we offer integrative care for children with ADHD, autism, and emotional issues. And this will be an intake where you meet with all 3 of us, and we'll do a brief eval and hopefully set you up with a plan and an idea of what the next steps would be. And also, we'll be giving away a book this morning with the 4th caller in. We'll be giving away Dr. Merman's book, Demystifying Homeopathy.
All right, we'll do that probably about halfway through the show, so Excellent. Listen up for that. All right, Drew, why don't you jump in?
Okay, great. I'm very excited to be talking about this morning. As an ND, as a naturopathic doctor, I'm trained in homeopathy as well as other types of medicine, and homeopathy is incredibly exciting. So let's dive right in and get to the nuts and bolts of the issue. As I mentioned, this is a clinical system, which means it's developed because it was discovered in the process of healing people. So, Dr. Mirman, can you tell us a little bit about Samuel Hahnemann and how he found this?
Right. Dr. Hahnemann was a doctor in Germany. He graduated from med school like all the other docs and went into practice. He wasn't too happy with the types of practice that he was doing because at the time the most common modalities were bloodletting and things like mercury and arsenic as medicines, which obviously we know now they're not so good for you. So he saw that he wasn't doing a lot of his patients a big favor by treating them this way, and actually quit medicine and went into doing chemistry mostly to make a living. He was also translating books, and it is through doing that, through translations, that he came up on the idea of homeopathy. And the legend goes like this. He was translating a book on use of cinchona bark or quinine, basically, in treating malaria. And the author was explaining that this substance treats malaria because it's so bitter, it causes this reaction in the body to kick malaria out. And Hahnemann wrote right into the translation that he didn't think that was a good explanation because he could name many substances even more bitter that didn't do anything to treat malaria. So he did an experiment on himself. He took a large dose of this substance, cinchona bark, and developed symptoms of poisoning, which were very similar to malaria symptoms. So he then puts out a hypothesis right into this translation that maybe it treats malaria because it causes similar symptoms in healthy people. So from that point on, he started doing experiments. Whoever wasn't afraid to visit his house, he would give them some poison to take and see what it does to them. He would develop then a system or basically a database of all these symptoms of all these substances, and then started treating sick people with these substances on that principle that if he saw symptoms in a sick person similar to one of the poisonings that he saw in his what he called provings, then he would give that person that particular substance, and in many cases he saw improvements. Then he developed a system of reducing the poisoning effect of these drugs by diluting them, and so what we're using now in homeopathy is very highly diluted medications, which are definitely not poisonous and not dangerous for you, but still have this healing effect.
Is this sort of an oversimplification? But it sounds like you're sort of helping the body use its own natural defenses against these things?
That's how we think about it, yes. So the remedy is almost like you're giving the body's defense system a mirror to look into. So the body recognizes, once given this medicine, the body has better recognition of what the problem is and then is better able to deal with it.
Okay. Sort of giving it a preview to...
Sort of, yeah. So the body, we think of the body as maybe a little bit confused, not able to cure whatever is going on with it, but the remedy introduces some clarity, and then the body takes care of itself.
Okay.
And it's interesting that these are poisonous substances. For example, like arsenic is used.
Some of them are. Some are totally inert. Arsenic, mercury, they're well known because they were drugs at the time of Hahnemann and have had a lot of work on them. But there's other substances like, for example, silica sand. That's completely inert, but through homeopathic preparation, it can be made into a powerful medication.
So how do they prepare it to turn it from sand into medicine?
Right. The principles in preparation, what we call potentization, which includes serial dilution and shaking of the substance between dilutions. So with sand, for example, you would have to triturate it or really mix it very carefully with sugar, 1 to 100 proportion. This takes a long time to kind of get this parts of the particles of the sand into the sugar. Then you do it again and again. And after a while, when it's already been triturated to a fairly low concentration, you put it in water and continue diluting. So 1 to 100, you dilute several times. In between, you shake the bottle. The problem with this is that after a while, you wash out the molecules. And this is always brought up in discussions with people who dislike homeopathy or want to detract from it, is the homeopathic remedies don't contain any molecules of the original substance, and it is indeed true. Why and how does it work then? Well, the answer is we don't know how it works. There's been many theories, anywhere from quantum physics to string theory. People try to use those things to explain homeopathy. I think this is nonsense. The answer is we don't know.
You have to push the guys over at Cosmos, maybe get them involved in this.
Yeah.
Right. And going into ND school myself, I knew this about homeopathy. And so I was very biased against it, actually. And I was like, oh, well, this nutrition stuff is good and herbs, absolutely great. But homeopathy, placebo effect, that's fine. But the darndest thing, seeing it applied over and over in clinic, it works, and it works rapidly. And so you're left, if you're into science, you're left with this cognitive dissonance of something that clinically works, yet you can't explain.
Absolutely, yeah. It initially was also very difficult for me to put these two together. But as a scientist, you have to say, okay, I see this, and then you go with it. Okay, you don't say I see it, but it can't possibly work, so I can't possibly be seeing it. Okay, that would be closing your eyes. That's totally unscientific.
Well, there's so many things in our history that, we couldn't explain at first. We knew they worked, but then the science had to catch up with the why, right?
Right. I'll tell you one thing that we know that works, and we don't know how it works. We have no clue how it works, and yet we use it all the time. Gravity. We don't have an explanation for gravity, yet it's there. So do we need to say that gravity doesn't exist? That doesn't make any sense to me.
Might be fun.
Yeah, really.
Yeah. So you're a practitioner that uses many different modalities, from medicine to homeopathy. So when do you think about using a homeopathic treatment, and how do you think about it working?
A patient comes to clinic, I have to figure out the best, most efficient way in helping them. I have to. It's almost like when, on a computer technician. They look at a computer and they try to figure out, is the problem with the hardware, or is the operating system, some software bugs, or whatever. So that's how I approach every case in the clinic. If I think, they have a strain or something and they need some physical therapy, that will be more of a hardware approach. Or they have a pneumonia and they need an antibiotic. Again, we're dealing with a hardware thing. We kill the bugs. Homeopathy, to me, is more like operating system debugging, where I see that there's something going on and the body is not able to deal with the issue. And the way to treat it is not to suppress the issue externally or with a medication, but really you need to teach the body to deal with it. You need to debug the operating system so it can take care of the problem.
So it sounds like you basically almost do like a basic troubleshooting.
Exactly.
Or just like any other, I suppose, modality, it's a part of diagnosing.
Right.
Okay. Well, we're going to pick up with that, maybe even talk about some case studies when we get back from this break here. You're listening to The Wake Up Call with our guest, Dr. Jacob Mirman, a classical homeopath with Life Medical. And we'll be back after this short break.
It's not easy sometimes to build these walls ever higher.
Sometimes life hurts. Sometimes the hurt lasts so long you think it will never end. Someone with fibromyalgia, chronic fatigue syndrome, or chronic pain may think they have no choice but to live a life of pain. At the Bhakti Wellness Center, we would like to give you a different choice. Even if you've exhausted the mainstream options, there can still be hope. Please call Guy Odisha at 612-859-7709 and have a conversation about how craniosacral therapy can create space for living life without pain. That's 612-859-7709.
It's an absolute must for any true foodie. Vinaigrette at 50th and Xerxes in South Minneapolis offers premium oils and vinegars for the most discriminating of tastes. This is Sarah Piepenberg, owner of Vinaigrette. We bottle on-site, there's no guesswork, and you get to taste test each and every oil and vinegar we offer. Our direct relationship with the growers ensures an uncompromised level of satisfaction. When you need to know you're cooking with the finest ingredients, first contact the independently owned Vinaigrette, 50th and Xerxes in South Minneapolis. Online at vinaigrettemn.com.
Horses draw our spirit. A connection can be made with a horse, whether you pass them in a field or have them in your backyard. But even if they've captured your heart, they can scare us. Joe Belasco's Ride Without Fear clinic and seminar will be offered May 31st and June 1st at the Double Z Stables in Stacy, Minnesota. This clinic supports riders who are dealing with personal fears. Horses will even be available for lease to adult riders. And if you prefer, you may audit the seminar and learn from watching the rides. You need to register now. There are limited spaces. To sign up, go to understandingthehorse.com or find us on Facebook at the Double Z Stables page. Join Joe and build your confidence on how to overcome fears and connect with the horse you ride. Again, for more information, go to understandingthehorse.com.
My name is Kurt. I like certain things, like a great haircut. That's why I go to Great Clips. They have clip notes that tell them exactly what I like. I don't want to be
Mr. Rockstar, right? I don't want an awesome fad, okay? I'm not
the latest superstar, movie star who everyone wants to
be. I'm Kurt. That's why I go to Great Clips.
New Clip Notes. Don't just get a cut, get your haircut. Only at Great Clips. It's going to be great.
Stop on in to a Minneapolis-St. Paul metro area Great Clips today. Wake up the power of your mind with help from Genesis Hypnosis. If you are struggling with insomnia or want help with smoking cessation, weight loss, and or stress reduction, I can help. Visit genesishypnosis.net or call Mary at 651-307-2977. That's 651-307-2977 to get more information or to make an appointment. Genesis Hypnosis is like a massage for your mind. Genesis Hypnosis is a proud sponsor of the Wake Up Call Saturday mornings at 9 a.m.
Good morning and welcome back to the Wake Up Call. We're chatting today about homeopathy with our special guest, Dr. Jacob Mirman. He's a classical homeopath with Life Medical over in St. Louis Park. And, I got to put a plug in for the live streaming video. You can find that on the AM950 website at am950radio.com. We're live video on there, and you would pick up some great between the break or during the break conversation going on here in the studio. So go ahead and check that out. And you can also find a link to their site on our website at thewakeupcallradioshow.com. And so with that, Dr. Drew, why don't we get back into things?
All right. Well, we're talking about a clinical system of medicine here, and so let's talk about some clinical practice and case studies and some nice stories about how this works.
Okay. When you take a case, you talk about adult, child, whatever. You talk about their physical symptoms, and also you want to know about their likes and dislikes and their quirks. And what we're looking for is what we call strange and peculiar symptoms, which means things that belong to the person themselves and not necessarily to the disease. So, for example, if like in your common duodenal ulcer case, you get pains in the stomach and they're better after eating. So this would not be a very useful case in homeopathy because it belongs to the disease and not to the person. To give you, like for example, there's this person who has a duodenal ulcer, but at the same time they have these emotional issues, and let's say she is very shy and she's unable to, she's not very confident and wants to be supported all the time by somebody. She is just not able to make decisions. So this kind of a person, it sounds like a remedy, for example, Brita carbonica, where it should help her in many respects, including her shyness and her duodenal ulcer. So you see, in homeopathy, we take a look at the whole case, not just a part of it, like just one symptom. I'll give you another case from of a child. This little girl was, I think she was 2, if I remember right. Chronic, constant ear infections. So mom brought her in. One look at her, she was really white, kind of pasty white. The skin was a little bit puffy on the face, a little doughy. She had this little sour smell to her. And she did have chronic ear infections. But to me, the guiding symptoms to this case was the way she looked. And she was very she would sit and didn't move very much, kind of very sluggish. So that would be a Calcarea carbonica case. So one dose of that remedy actually stopped her infection for that year. So no more, just one dose. And that winter, she didn't have any infections. She started having some by the end of the winter, and I gave another dose, and those cleared up. And she did not need any antibiotics that year. There's another case of a kid who was brought in because there was delayed development. He was 3.5. There was no talking, and he had some digestive issues with undigested food and diarrhea fairly commonly. And that was a difficult one. I kept looking into it, and I wasn't finding any kind of really peculiar things. But there was one peculiar thing that really came out was he really loved cucumbers. He would eat cucumbers anytime. And looking more into the case and looking at this symptom, he came up with the remedy Antimonium crudum. And as we started this, there was a real reversal. He started talking a lot more. And the diarrhea cleared up, and he started developing and growing better. So it was very, very remarkable. And the next year, there was a really remarkable shift in the child. And this is the kind of results that you see with homeopathy.
That's exciting and really interesting. And I got a couple of things from that. Well, first, you're looking at the whole person. You're looking at all a constellation of symptoms, not just their presenting complaint.
Right.
And that goes into it. And then there's a level of detail and expertise with the remedy and thinking and careful consideration of how to match the right remedy to the person.
Right. The match is very, very important. It has to match. It has to match on every level. And the way we know that it matches, we have this database of all these different remedies, and we're sitting there with the person and going back and forth and matching what they have with the books. The books, I used to have a whole huge case of books in my office. Now it's all on the computer, so it's a lot easier. But that's the whole process.
And so how does this go? You give the remedy and then they get better, or?
It depends. It depends on the case. Sometimes I'll give a single dose and we wait. Sometimes I give it in drops and they take it once a day. And we watch the results. And it may take, sometimes it's fast and sometimes it takes a while to develop the effect. But the real question is how, if it's a chronic constitutional case, how are they feeling a month or 2 or 3 from starting the treatment? Because that's when we start seeing the effect of the remedy. In an acute case, like an influenza or something similar, we need to see results within hours. Homeopathy is very good with acute cases. Somebody with very high fever, feeling really bad, and you give them, let's say, belladonna, if that fits, and within a couple hours, they are so much better.
Right. And these are the cases that made me realize homeopathy worked, because how can you reduce a fever that quickly? How can people feel better so fast when you know they have influenza, you know they have a bacterial infection, and yet you see this response?
Well, right. I suppose with the homeopathy side of things, you talked about the chronic issues and you may not see results for a month, 2 months, 3 months, that I think sometimes we get so caught up in the modern treatments where they're not necessarily treating the problem right away, they're just masking the symptoms. So people get that quote-unquote immediate relief.
Right.
But it sounds like with homeopathy, you're diving more in and trying to get at the cause,
Correct.
Not just masking the symptoms.
Yes, homeopathy is not about relieving symptoms. It has nothing to do with relieving symptoms. It is about real deep improvement, which is permanent and persistent. And then eventually the goal is to stop the remedy and have the patient still be just fine without it. So it is curative.
So are there side effects?
Side effects, sometimes there's some reactions, sometimes symptoms get worse initially, and we need to deal with that. And our professional homeopath knows how to deal with these things. But they are not any kind of toxic side effects like you get with the medications or with regular drugs.
Great.
I suppose you may have to worry about things like allergic reactions or things like that.
Not to homeopathic remedies, no.
Okay.
No, there's nothing there to cause an allergic reaction.
Okay. All right, well, real quick, we're coming up on another break, but you did author a book. The title of that book is Demystifying Homeopathy.
Right.
Is that correct? And we're going to be giving away a copy of that. We'll give that to caller number 4 at our studio line at 952-946-6205. And it's 952-941-6205. Can you give us maybe a quick 20, 30-second summary of the book real quick?
It's very brief. The book is only about 40 pages, and it basically gives you a basic understanding of the origins of homeopathy, how the remedies are made, why they're made that way, how they are prescribed, all the pitfalls. There is a segment on scientific research in the back of the book where it gives all the good articles, studies into effectiveness of homeopathy, double-blind placebo-controlled trials.
All right. Again, called 952-946-6205, and you're listening to The Wake Up Call here on AM950, the progressive voice of Minnesota. We'll be back after this break.
The world is made up of fire, earth, metal, water, air, and wood. Every season, your body has reactions to the elements that affect your health. I'm Giselle Erickson, Elemental Wellness Coach, and I help people balance their reactions for optimal health. I'm giving away a free Element Health Assessment to the first 50 people that call 612-964-7357. That's 612-964-7357. Never underestimate the element of you.
Every Saturday at noon, join our retirement conversation with the Neil Larson Financial Hour here on AM 950 KTNF. Neil brings you the retirement news and advice you need to create safe money. Call today for your free personal appointment. 952-303-3232. Neil Larson can show you proven financial strategies to help you create a stable income in retirement. Call today, 952-303-3232. Don't miss the Neil Larson Financial Hour, Saturdays at noon on AM 950 KTNF.
As a coach and psychologist, I help people lead happier, more fulfilling lives. Putting our hearts and minds together, you can learn how to support yourself to put the past behind and do more of the things that help you be happier. Rediscover your joy. Hold on to your passions. Call me, Tom Glazer, psychologist and happiness coach, at 612-240-4289. That's 612-240-4289. Or check out my website at tomglazerlp.com. Living the life of your dreams may be just a few conversations away.
Go Mango provides custom cleaning services for home and office. We understand the value of family and friends and believe your free time should be spent enjoying life. That's why we take care of your office while you play and your home while you're away. Go Mango means no more worries about yesterday's mess or tomorrow's dust. Schedule today to receive our home special. 2 people, 2 hours, your to-do list, just $75. Or sign a 1-year office contract and get 1 month free. GoMangoNow.com. 952-466-6037. Rest easy. We'll clean it up.
Hi, this is Freddie Bell. Coming up on New Beginnings this Saturday, our co-host Joe McKenzie of Ripple Connects talks about your transferable value. We visit with Gary Johnson from the Better Business Bureau, and financial planner Mike Nakashima from Innovate Financial stops by to talk about Social Security. All this and more, 1 p.m. this Saturday, New Beginnings on AM 950, the progressive voice of Minnesota.
Hopkins Meditation Center blends ancient wisdom and modern scientific knowledge, offering classes taught by an instructor experienced in meditation and personal growth. One of the most common reasons the medical community looks to meditation is to help people lower blood pressure. If you're looking for self-realization or to improve your health in a safe, comfortable environment, you will find the information and support you need at the Hopkins Meditation Center. Find us at bhakticlinic.com. That's BHAKTI clinic.com.
This is John Paul with your AM 950 weather update. Today will be sunny with a high near 45. Tonight, mostly clear with a low around 36. Then on Sunday, mostly sunny with a high near 59.
Don't miss the Home Improvement and Design Expo this Saturday at the National Sports Center in Blaine. See up to 150 home improvement experts. The Home Improvement and Design Expo, Saturday at the National Sports Center in Blaine. It's the smart place to start your next home improvement project. See it all at expoguys.com. That's expoguys.com.
Good morning. Good morning.
Good morning and welcome to the Wake Up Call, where you'll find the education, encouragement, and inspiration you need to change your mind and change your health. The Wake Up Call is an outreach of the Bhakti Wellness Center. And today's program is brought to you by the folks over at the Integrative Team for Children with Challenges and Dr. Andrew Litchy of Bhakti Wellness. And that's basically we're talking about homeopathy with our guest, Dr. Mirman. And, Drew, why don't we just, we talked a little bit about some of the history of it. We got a little bit into some of the, some case studies that the doctors worked with. What are we going to talk about now?
Well, now we're going to go into some of the cultural applications of it, how it's viewed in the medical community, some of the research behind it, and how it can be used in practice and some of the history. So for such a powerful form of medicine, it's interestingly absent in conventional medicine. And you look at conventional complementary centers such as the Mayo Clinic, they have Reiki, they have acupuncture, they have no homeopathy. You look at the same thing in Minneapolis at the Abbott Penny George Institute, no homeopathy, Reiki, acupuncture, Ayurveda. So there's a little bit of disconnect here in my mind about this, why it is so absent in the conventional systems. And what do you think, Dr. Mirman?
Well, I think it's because of its scientific implausibility. So basically, there's nothing there, or there's nothing that can be measured in the remedy. And so there's a great resistance to using something like that by all physicians. It's basically thought of as quackery, of something not real, as pure placebo. I can see why they would think this, However, it can only be thought so by people who have never observed its effect. The real question is, have you actually looked how it works? If anybody in history, there's been in history many doctors who didn't believe and then decided to look and found that was very effective. I am one of them. I also thought it's ridiculous, but I tried the remedies and I had very remarkable effects from it. So this is basically, to me, not including it, just excluding it from all these centers is short-sighted and basically closing your eyes on something very useful.
So I just to take this maybe just a step deeper.
Yeah.
So I think much of what you just said could also be said for the other examples that Drew gave, which of Reiki. There's nobody yet who's come up with a proof for what's there, like an ability to measure it and say, oh, you're doing this and here it is, and oh, now you switch to that and we can see that you've changed the spectrum of whatever or the quality of whatever. In a certain way, Chinese medicine and acupuncture, Western medicine still hasn't come up with a way to prove in its gestalt that there are these things called meridians in qi and that you can move qi and it has an effect on health. So this idea of still working with immaterial forces that can't be seen or measured, but yet homeopathy has not been accepted where these other modalities have. So it remains to me a curiosity. I mean, I watched this happen in my own clinic at the University of Minnesota, and we would present on all kinds of alternative medicine that, again, kind of have the same issue of material proof.
Right.
But the utter resistance to homeopathy was still to this day mind-boggling to me. We would have doctors with great reputations present on homeopathy. They would turn over literally a stack of data supporting its efficacy. And the medical doctors in the clinic would just ignore it. Like they just couldn't even have a conversation about it.
It's true.
It's curious
to
me.
It's very curious. It's still very hard to understand why. The only way I can understand it is by looking at history. Hahnemann, from very beginning, was extremely critical of the medical doctors of his time. So they didn't like him very much. As homeopathy came to the United States, homeopaths organized the American Institute of Homeopathy, which was the first, basically a trade group of doctors in the country. And they were very negative, very critical about the conventional doctors of the time in this country. For good reason. Bloodletting and poisoning with mercury is not good treatment. Nonetheless, maybe they should have been a little bit more politically, nice. I don't know. But a couple of years after American Institute of Homeopathy was founded, AMA was founded with a specific purpose to fight the homeopaths. Yeah. Initially, the AMA had a clause in it where any doctor who was a part of AMA and would consult a homeopath or refer to a homeopath would be immediately kicked out of the organization. Yeah. So that historically, this has been ingrained in the medical politics of this country.
Yeah. So personally, I think that's a better answer than they don't know what it is, they can't understand it. I think it's say acupuncture. It came from another culture. It has this sense of it's theirs, not ours, and it can be imported. But with homeopathy, it's like you're saying, it's from the West. It was seen as a competition,
right?
And there is this kind of systemic push against it. I'm thinking of osteopathy, and they faced a very similar. The AMA was just against them as much as homeopathy, formed to keep osteopathy out.
Yeah,
and we see, osteopaths have maybe sort of arguably kind of worked their way back in. Chiropractors, you mentioned, not so much. I mean, of all of the modalities we brought to the university, the two that were utterly unacceptable. Like we couldn't even get the doctors to sit down and talk about it. Chiropractic and homeopathy. And I think what you're saying is this is a lot to do with it. You know,
yeah, I mean, it's part of maybe that culture thing, but also maybe they're sort of the new kids on the block, and they still, well, it doesn't seem like it should have to take place, but maybe they just still have to prove themselves.
I don't think it's so much that. It's the ingrained resistance.
Yeah, right. Yeah. Okay, so the Western medical system needs a homeopathic treatment to help them, you know, to be able to tolerate homeopathy.
Well, I think it will get this treatment when it finally realizes that it's not sustainable the way it's done.
Yeah.
And something needs to change, and I think the way to change it is to integrate all these effective modalities into medicine so that we can actually make it sustainable and don't need to use such expensive treatments as we're using now for no good reason.
Yeah, I think you're absolutely right.
Well, and one way the conventional medical community communicates with itself about these alternative treatments is with the research base. And whether or not the research is good or bad or how it's used politically, that happens too. Studies and research is used to incorporate Reiki, incorporate acupuncture. And so what is the research base of homeopathy looking like these days?
There are a few studies. Most homeopathic studies are fairly small. So the power is not good enough to claim anything. I mean, there's a problem with doing the way research in medicine is done is companies with a lot of money, such as pharmaceutical companies, develop a product. They can study this product. They can spend millions of dollars, and then eventually they recoup this expense by selling the product, the patented drug. This can't happen in homeopathy because remedies are very, very cheap. So there's no money to be made on making remedies. For that reason, we don't get these high statistical power studies. Nonetheless, there are a few studies which are interesting. There are some studies in animals which are statistically significant, where, for example, in cows, part of the herd is treated and the other part is not, and the remedies put in their drinking water. Probably the best study in homeopathy is in influenza symptoms. This was run in England and that then was published in the British Journal of Clinical Pharmacology. There was about 500 people. This was double-blind, placebo-controlled. It was written up in Lancet in a very positive editorial. This actually can be found in the appendix to my book, online, bookonhealing.com. Go to the book, then in their appendix, and you can read it right there. And all the studies that I thought were any reasonably good are included in that appendix. Unfortunately, I would be the first to agree that it's really not enough to prove anything. So the proof is in the eating. You have to see the cases. You have to talk to the homeopaths, to the patients of the homeopaths, and then you start getting the understanding of what it can do, how powerful it is.
Yeah, and you talked about the flu, and this brings us to a great historical event with homeopathy, where we have some data, and it's interesting to compare it to conventional approaches, and that's the 1918 flu epidemic.
Right. This was very interesting. Actually, this history is on our website, flusolution.net. That's flusolution.net. We put this study on the site as well as more information on treating influenza with homeopathy. What happened in 1918, this was a very severe epidemic, as most of our listeners know, and people were dying. A lot of people were dying, millions. In conventional treatment, about 30% of patients actually did not survive. However, this study shows the experience of homeopathic doctors in the field, and their experience was that they were losing somewhere between 1 and 4% of their cases, most of them under 1%. So this is where we come on the idea of genus epidemicus. A lot of these patients required only one or two remedies because the symptoms were so similar that you could figure out the remedy for the whole epidemic. So in some epidemics, it's possible to find that remedy. And then you can actually even prophylax. You give this to healthy people, and either they don't develop the disease, or their disease, once they develop it, is a lot lighter than would have been expected. So we use this on a regular basis.
Do we still do this genus epidemicus?
Yeah, we always try to figure it out. When there's a flu going on, all the homeopaths look at each other's experience and try to figure out what the common remedy is. And then you can try to use it as a preventative in healthy people. It's almost like a vaccination, except you're not getting any molecules. Again, it's very mind-boggling, but that's how it works.
Right.
Well, we're coming up on another break here. We got a few seconds left. And I know there is the whole thing about, like vaccinations and whatnot is kind of in the news again recently, because there's an outbreak out west that's and stuff that's happening with measles, I believe. Mm-hmm. I mean, is this, we'll have to address this after the break maybe, but yeah, maybe just take another look at the role and how you feel about maybe vaccinations, and we'll try to wrap things up.
Sure.
All right, you're listening to the Wake Up Call here on AM950, the progressive voice of Minnesota, and we're talking homeopathy with our guest, Dr. Mirman, and we'll be back after this short commercial break.
Wake up, little Susie. Wake up, little Susie.
Craniosacral therapy is a gentle, non-invasive, deeply relaxing treatment that calms and balances the central nervous system. It is especially helpful for people that have suffered a traumatic event, either physically or emotionally. Guy Odishaw is one of the highest trained craniosacral practitioners in the Twin Cities and is the one to call if you're curious about how craniosacral therapy can help get you back to health. Call 612-859-7709 to connect with Guy. That's 612-859-7709. Call him today to see what the other side of life can feel like.
A place for children, youth, and families.
Faith in action.
Music and the arts.
A community for all.
I'm Tim Hart Anderson, Senior Pastor at Westminster Presbyterian Church, 12th and Nicollet Mall in downtown Minneapolis. Online at westminstermpls.org. Westminster is a Christian community working for love, for peace, and for justice. Westminster Presbyterian, a telling presence in the city since 1857. westminstermpls.org.
Wake up the power of your mind with help from Genesis Hypnosis. If you are struggling with insomnia or want help with smoking cessation, weight loss, and or stress reduction, I can help. Visit genesishypnosis.net or call Mary at 651-307-2977. That's 651-307-2977 to get more information or to make an appointment. Genesis Hypnosis is like a massage for your mind. Genesis Hypnosis is a proud sponsor of the Wake Up Call Saturday mornings at 9 a.m.
Sometimes losing can be winning, particularly when it comes to your weight. So says a national wellness campaign that's challenging the public to examine their weight and health and talk with their healthcare provider. The campaign draws attention to the many health problems that accompany excess weight, such as diabetes, hypertension, and others. The Your Weight Matters campaign, produced by the Obesity Action Coalition, offers participants a free toolkit filled with tips to help people talk with their doctor and live a healthier life. To take the campaign challenge, visit yourweightmatters.org.
Hello, fellow AM950 listeners. Jaysha here with Nightingale Restaurant. Together with my wife Carrie and a very dedicated staff, we at Nightingale present a thoughtful and delicious approach to food and drink. Focusing on scratch-made, local, sustainable food, we are striving to make the dining experience interesting and enjoyable to all. Join us for share plates or entrees, for dinner, snacks, and cocktails, at happy hour or for soulful Sunday brunch. Find us on the corner of 26th and Lyndale in South Minneapolis, and on Facebook, Twitter, and at nightingalempls.org.
At Winter Goddess Foods, we are purveyors of natural and organic comfort drinks, snacks, and treats. We source both fair trade and local ingredients to give you the best possible chai, caramels, buttercrunch toffee, and granola, and never use additives or artificial whatnots. Our products are made with intent to provide you moments of pleasure and satisfaction. Find us online at wintergoddessfoods.com, your local co-op or specialty store, or ask for us by name. Winter Goddess Foods, made with love for your well-being.
It's a beautiful morning.
All right, good morning and welcome back to the Wake Up Call. And again, I got to put a plug in for the live streaming video that you can catch on the AM950radio.com website and just listen in our interesting conversations that we have here during the breaks. You won't you guys are going to be doing a little something with the video, so we'll maybe post up stuff about that. And actually, speaking of the show in general, if you missed part of it, you can always catch our podcast on our website at thewakeupcallradioshow.com. We'll have that posted up later this weekend. All right, I think we're just going to kind of piggyback on that conversation you guys were having during the break and kind of jump back into our conversation on homeopathy.
Yeah. Well, the question before we can get to break is about vaccines. And I think, I'm sure a common criticism of homeopaths is they are thought to be anti-vaccines. And, well, is that true?
And a lot of them are. However, it is very important to decouple this issue from homeopathy. There are people who are against vaccines, and there are people who do homeopathy, and they are different groups, although there is a lot of crossing between the groups.
So that Venn diagram kind of thing where the two circles cross.
Yeah, they're not synonymous. So me, for example, I'm not against vaccines. We do vaccinate in our clinic. I try to view each vaccine on its merits, and I discuss all these vaccines with whoever is going to get them, and we decide if that's needed or not. But vaccines have their place, and there are something wrong with them, but not necessarily with all of them. And there's no reason to diss them all as a class, basically.
You just can't take them all. You got to look at it just like when you're treating somebody. You can't take it as a whole picture. You got to look at the individual.
You have to look at the case and decide what's needed there. Right.
Right, and I think that's a common criticism, but it's not understood that different homeopaths have different views of vaccines. Different practitioners do.
Right.
There's conventional docs that don't like vaccines either and don't use them. So, yeah. Well. Now let's move on to talking about kids. Kids are something that you and I work with.
Yes.
Is an interest of ours. And I think it's interesting that homeopathic treatments appear to be particularly effective for children in that acute remedies, when given for the fever, act dramatically on children. They do on adults too, but in my practice, I've seen it work just particularly well with kids, and they work particularly for the chronic problems. Is that what you notice as well?
Yeah, definitely. I think it's very nice, or it makes me feel good when I use homeopathy in kids because they respond usually quite well, and they get cured, they get so much better, and then you take them off and they're much healthier for the rest of their life. So it's a much bigger bang for the buck.
Right, and some of the particular problems that children have, like ADHD, developmental disorders, and emotional conditions, we don't have great conventional treatments for. We have supportive therapies and things that can help them, but there's very little that we think can shift the underlying biology and picture of these things. I mean, there's antidepressant medications, but there's very little children can do themselves to treat these.
Right, and medicines, they do help, but they basically just control symptoms. They are not curative. Medications, regular drugs. So we have to look for anything else out there that would help. And there are these modalities, and that's what we've tried to do here with ITCC, right? We put together what we thought was the most effective in these situations, such as mental, emotional, ADD, ADHD, autism, etc. And to me, it makes perfect sense to use these modalities as we chose. Again, looking at hardware-software analogy, with naturopathy, you address the workings of the physical body, all the biochemistry, etc. And with the reflexes, you are moving if some of the reflexes are stuck or blocked, and that's what's causing the problem. And with homeopathy, obviously, if you optimize the operating system, you're going to eventually get much better result. Just like with computers, there's a bug in the system, you need to get rid of the bug.
Right. And And this is in conjunction with other treatments too. This is not another bias I sometimes hear from homeopathic practitioners or people who talk about it is only homeopathy should be used, and there's not a place for other things. And that's not what we're saying. Is homeopathy and alternative medicine is a piece of the puzzle, and it works well with other things too. It's not an either/or situation. It's a yes and.
Right. And, you use whatever works, and you optimize all parts of the problem, or all parts of the case of the patient.
Yep. Absolutely.
Well, real quick, one thing we didn't touch on that I do want to, because you mentioned the ITCC, the Integrated Team for Children with Challenges. Where can they find out more about this program that you guys are working on?
Well, we are working on the website. It's not quite ready yet, but we do have a Facebook page right now. So
okay. And we'll put a link to that up on our Facebook page.
Of course, if there's questions, they can always call Dr. Litchy's office, which is where we.
Why don't you give out your number there?
It's 612-259-8529. And you can look on the Bhakti Clinic website for my email address as well. You can look on Book on Healing for
bookonhealing.com.
For Dr. Merman's email address to contact us.
Okay.
And the office number if they need.
Okay. Well, we got about a minute left for you guys to just kind of wrap up. But is there any kind of last-minute message you want to leave with folks?
Well, I think the last thing to brush on is the cost of homeopathic medicines and how inexpensive they are compared to other medicines. There is a cost of care associated with this, but the actual remedies themselves are interesting in that we have an infinite supply of them. Basically,
they're basically free.
Basically free.
Okay. So it's more about the diagnosing and figuring out
about
what's
the
going to help
doctor's
some.
time that it takes a long time. Like in a constitutional case, it takes me usually between 2 and 4 hours to figure out the remedy.
Okay. Well, great. All right. Well, thanks again for being with us, Dr. Mirman. We really appreciate it. And next week, we got another special guest, Jim Nelson. He's the author of Running on Empty, Transcending the Economic Culture Seduction of Our Youth. We're going to talk a bit about the 4 primitive urges, the ego, and how they kind of, the role they may be playing in sort of the increase in depression and suicide in teens, and how he's using meditation and other methods to kind of play a role in helping those kids out. So we're going to talk about that next week. And then, Drew, you have a closing quote for us today?
I do. I have a quote from Hippocrates, perhaps the father of Western medicine. And healing is a matter of time, but it is sometimes also a matter of opportunity.
All right. Well, thanks again for being with us, Dr. Mirman. We really appreciate it. And, it's, again, just to find out, you can find out their group, the Integrated Team for Children with Challenges, through their Facebook page. Just search for them on there, and we'll link to that up with the podcast. That'll be up later today. And you've been listening to the Wake Up Call, an outreach of the Bhakti Wellness Center, where you'll find the education, encouragement, and inspiration you need to change your mind and change your health. And today's show was brought to you by the Integrated Team for Children with Challenges, as well as Dr. Andrew Litchy of the Bhakti Wellness Center. And just have a great weekend, everybody.
It's a day to go out and play and smile to the world. Open your eyes, jump out of bed. You just wake up. Wake up. Wake up. Wake up. Get up, sleepyheads. Don't stay in bed.
First Tech, the world's first Apple store and a long supporter of AM950, is closing their doors at 6 p.m. on Saturday. But they're still offering tremendous deals. Head in for their liquidation sale, where new and used Apple products are all on sale. Save money and support a business that believes in the progressive message. Get great deals on new and used Apple products, including desktops, MacBooks, iPads, and more. Plus, enjoy